Hello, everybody. Good morning, Philippines. Good evening here in the US. This is just a follow-up presentation about H1B for those who actually would want to know more about that. Just give me a little bit time to share the link to some of the Facebook pages I have. Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. Sir Bal Tito, Ma'am Maria, Abby. So again, I only have few slides in my presentation. So if you have questions, you could basically write them down in the comment section. So I will be able to respond to you. Okay. So again, this is Nick Caracal live here in New York. If you have questions, just post them down. So magandang gabi po dito. Good morning, Philippines. So ang topic po natin ngayon is all about H1B. So kung may mga katanungan kayo, isulat na lang natin. So to start with, just a reminder or disclaimer that I will try to answer or present the topic as general as possible. But if you have questions, I will try to answer them. But it doesn't mean that it would create a client-attorney relationship. But if you need more discussion about your case, you could actually send us questions. Okay. Hello, Ma'am Bebs. Good evening. Ma'am Melody, Zenny. Thank you for tuning in. Okay. So we'll start with general principles. It may sound like a repetition of what I have presented, I think at least a month ago, where I actually presented the J1 over H1B. But we'll go over for now just H1B. Kasi recently I have several approvals on the H1B, and it has been followed and seen by a lot of followers po, and they become interested about knowing what H1B is. So an H1B is a temporary non-immigrant visa for foreign nationals who would want to work in specialty occupations. And in specialty occupation, what we mean is basically those who would at least require a bachelor's degree or the equivalent. And it could pretty much cover all areas or all industries, whether it be in engineering, technology, medical science. So the principles that we will be discussing here will apply to all professional areas. Again, any profession that require at least a bachelor's degree may qualify for H1B. Ang question na lang natin ngayon is, will they be able to find an employer or an H1B employee who would want to file a petition for them? Okay? I would understand also na baka mas maraming teachers na nanonood sa atin because this is the season for hiring season ng mga teachers because the schools just opened and they may have a lot of questions about this. So I understand that there's a number of Filipino teachers in the US who are currently on a J1 visa, and they may also still be interested to know how are they going to transition from J to an H visa. So I hope, let me know if you would be able to hear me okay. If I have no problem with my audio system here. So again, good evening. So nasaan pa naman tayo, no? Introduction, so I would be able to see you might want to see me. Okay. In terms of duration and timing, an H1B has a maximum duration of 6 years. So initially, they are issued in 3 years, and then it can be extended up to 6 years until such time that the employer will be able to decide whether to file a green card application for the applicant. So there are two types of H1B. There's what we call the H1B cap and the H1B cap exempt employers. So we're going to talk about that in the next slides. But for purposes of understanding what H1B cap for now, so this basically applies generally for the private employers. No? So there's about 85,000 H1B numbers available for a year, of which 20,000 are reserved for the master's degree. So dahil mas marami ang mga applications or petitions on H1B filed every year, what the government did is they do it through raffle or lottery. No? So, mas malaki ang chance if your profession requires a master's degree. So, example, in the field of engineering, in the field of mga teachers, na mga SPED teachers, there are states where they would require at least a master's degree. for you to be able to teach in SPED areas, no? So yun, if the school is not CAP exempt or if the school is a private institution, they might be able to file and have a better chance of mabunot doon sa lottery na yun because again, 20,000 yung reserve sa mga master's degree or above. And if you happen to be, if you obtain your H1B through lottery, even if the bunot ka in April, or sometimes they do the second raffling in September, your start date would still be in October 1. Okay? So, yun yung sa H1B cap na mga lucky applicants to obtain their H1B. However, there are also employers who are actually exempt from the cap. So meaning dahil nga limited yung number ng H1B visa numbers available per year, if you would qualify for some exception, then you are not counted against the 85,000 H1B visas. Instead, once you get the H1B cap exemption status, you could hire any H1B employees any time of the year. Hindi ka magsasama dun sa lottery. And once the H1B is approved, it could also be the start of your employment. And then depending na kung anong makukuha mong duration. But generally, it has an initial duration of 3 years and it can be extended up to 6 years until such time that your employer would file a petition for you. Unique features. So, dual intent is allowed. Ibig sabihin, so again, maraming mga probably viewers natin who are currently on J1, and since a J1 is a training exchange visitor visa, they could not actually express their intention of applying for a green card because if their J1 sponsor have evidence that they actually have shown intent to apply for permanent residency, or they would want to change status either to H or another non-immigrant visa, they may not be able to extend or renew their J1 visa status. No, but it doesn't apply in H. So even if you come in on H visa and then your employer would want to file the green card application for you, they could basically do that because an H visa is a dual intent type of visa. So ibig sabihin, walang conflict of interest or intent if on the first day of your arrival on an H, you would want to apply for a green card immediately. I can't hear now. Hello? Can you hear me? Can you just give me a feedback as to whether or not you could hear me now? Okay, I'm just waiting for a feedback if okay na yung sounds ko. Clear the audio. Okay, sorry for that though. So again, I don't know if you want to go back to the first slides if you didn't hear me a while ago. So again, balik ko lang yung unique features ng H1. It is a dual intent visa category, meaning even in your after you arrive in the US, and if your petitioner or employer would want to file a green card application for you, and it's allowed, even if you are already at the stage where you need to extend or renew your H1B visa, but the employer also decide to continue to concurrently file the green card application for you, it's allowed. So then, unlike the J1 visa, they are not subject to waivers. No, I mean, hindi kailangan ng waivers for H1B. So it means once their employer decides to file a green card application for them, there is no need for them to go home or comply or stay there for at least 2 years before the employer can file a green card for them. So again, even on your first day of arrival, if the petitioners decide to file the green card for you, it's allowed and you don't have to go home to your home country. The good thing about the H1B though is that it requires a labor condition application where the employer needs to attest that they will be willing to comply with the rules around the H1B visa so as not to disadvantage the locals dito, no? So hindi dapat favorable or disadvantageous ang mga benefits na ino-offer mo dun sa locals mo as well as the H1B employees. So the government ensures protection on the workers by ensuring that the employer will file a labor condition application. So, yun yung one of the unique features ng H-1B. In terms of transfers, yes, you unlike the J-1 visa, an H-1 visa holder could transfer to another employer. They are allowed to have more than one employer provided that each employer will file an H-1B petition for them. May again, yun yung sinasabi natin, may work for 2 or more employees, but it requires a new petition before you could actually file an to the new employer. No? So just make sure na hindi ka magbabayurit dyan, because if the government finds out, they could basically cancel your H-1B visa. Now, in terms of the dependents, the dependent spouse or the dependent children below 21 years old and are unmarried could actually accompany with the H-1B. They are called H-4 visa holders, but unfortunately, they cannot work. No? So unlike J-1 visa where they could basically work, but they may be able to apply for work permit if the H-1B petitioner or beneficiary is already in its way applying for the green card application. However, they don't need another visa to be able to attend school or to get a driver's license or open a bank account. They would be able to show their H-1B visa stamp, and they would be able to be allowed to actually engage in these activities. Okay, before I proceed on this topic on the employers, now I will just try to answer kung may mga tanong kayo dito. Hi, attorney. I would just like to ask, I already have a B1, B2 visa, but would also like to get an H1B visa. Can I do part-time while in the States? Okay, so ma'am, as a tourist visa holder, you are not allowed to work in the United States. However, you might be able to, okay, careful ka lang dun ma'am ha, kasi pag nalaman kasi ng officer at port of entry that you are actually looking for job opportunities when you visit the United States, then they might actually cancel or revoke your tourist visa upon port of entry. No? So again, as a tourist visa holder, you are not allowed to work, and you are not supposed to be working while on a tourist visa. However, if the question is, will you be allowed to actually seek H-1B while outside the United States? Of course. And since an H-1B visa can be obtained in as early as 2 to 3 weeks, then you might want to actually have that conversation with your potential employer that, hey, if I would qualify for the job offer that you are actually offering, then they might be able to premium process your H-1B. Okay? So, if you are also, halimbawa lang that you are able to enter the United States on a tourist visa, and then you happen to have an offer that will actually allow you to apply for an H-1B, then there is what we call the change of status. So that's actually changing status from the B1, B2 to the H1B. But just be very careful with that, ma'am, no? During the entry mo, kasi if the officer finds out, they might be able to cancel your visa. Okay, so Philip, wala nang Chelsea, Warren Mendoza, Jovi. Ay, sorry. Okay, namimili lang ako dito ng questions, boss, no? Kasi medyo marami-rami din. Sir Michael, hello, attorney. I am on my 4th year under J1 visa and not subject to 213. However, my visa stamp has expired. Is the exemption for the 212 still in force? Most likely, boss, you are still not subject to, but to be in the safer side, I would recommend that you apply for an advisory opinion, and if indeed you are not subject to, because either walang government funding yung program mo, then chances are you will be able to seek H-1B. But ang recommendation ko for the J-1 visa holders who are not subject to 212E, and if your employer is willing to file an H-1B petition for you, I would recommend that you do that. You have that conversation with the employer before your extension. before your extension of the J1 visa. But be mindful of your contracts with your J1 sponsor though, because you might be violating your agreement with them. Si Facebook user, posible po ba makapag H1B ang J1 na subject to the 212E? We will have a specific slide for that regarding J1 visa holders. B. Reyes, Katrina, okay, tinatag lang pala niya yung mga kaibigan ninyo. H4 work permits for spouses possible for H1B cap exempt. Boss, it doesn't matter whether cap exempt siya or subject to cap. Pag H4 ka, you are not allowed to work, no? But there are exceptions to this rule. So halimbawa nga, if you are already in your 5th year and then the H1B applicant or primary visa holder is already in the process of their green card application, then the H4 beneficiary, might be able to apply for the work permit. So I would recommend that whoever is handling your green card application for the H1 to actually discuss with the lawyer when to apply for the for the work permit. However, the Biden's program for some immigration changes actually include for H4 visa holders to be able to apply for a work permit. But sa ngayon, proposal pa lang yan, hindi pa talaga siya nagiging, it was not approved yet and it's not being implemented. Will Johnson, posible po ba i-apply ang H4 visa at a later time? Let's say, a year after ma-approve ang H1B visa, may commitment. Yes, ma'am. For as long as the H1 visa ng primary beneficiary is still valid, then the H4 could follow to join anytime. So, wala naman siya restriction as to when. So, ang kini-question lang ng embassy doon is, valid pa ba ang H1B ng primary applicant? Manang, is it true that you cannot change status due to working visa for the first 3 months of an entry? Yes po. There is what we call the 90-day prohibition rule. So as a tourist visa holder, your primary intention to coming to the United States is to basically enjoy, pleasure and for business reasons. And if there will be reasons why you need to actually change plans, you cannot do that within the first 90 days of your arrival in the United States. Else, it could potentially be fraud for violating the terms of your tourist visa. Neil, Attorney, good evening po. I am a J1 visa teacher. Again, naman to and not subject to a 20-day rule, but planning to resign since my willing mag-sponsor sa akin for H1B. Pwede mo ba na tapusin ang contract ko then transfer to the new school district? Okay, so boss, una, good job. Congratulations na may offer ka ng H1B. So the rule is, you can only hold one non-immigrant visa at any time. So meaning, once the new employer files a petition for H1B for you, and then na-approve yung H1B, you are no longer a J1 visa holder. So ang question mo is, pwede po ba na di ko tapusin ang contract ko, then transfer to the new school district? By the time that you already said yes to the new employer, boss, you are in a way violating the terms of your contract kasi binibreach mo na yun, no? But I would recommend that you have that conversation with your new employer, at least to protect you. But to better protect yourself, I would recommend that you consult with a lawyer just to identify your risk and liability kung ano man by transitioning from J1 to H1B. Now, but to answer your question, when your H1B is approved, you are no longer a J1 visa holder, and it's not even a choice for you to say, kung kailan ka lilipat doon. Dapat lilipat ka talaga doon because you don't want to be out of status at that point. No? So again, upon approval of your H1B, you are no longer a J1 visa holder after that. Josh, if a teacher is on a J1 and subject to 128, what if the teacher decides to go home in the second or third year, hindi na tatapusin ang J1 program? Can the teacher apply for an H1B while in the Philippines? And if yes, how long? So, boss, hindi ko na itatouch yung potential breach of contract mo, no? Kasi when you actually sign that J1 visa contract, you committed yourself to finishing the program, whether it's a 1-year program, 2 years, or a 3 years program. So, generally, yung initial term kasi ng J1 mo is 3 years. But if you decide to go home on your first year and second year, then again, I will not touch on the liability mo on a contract, but for immigration purposes, you need to comply with the 2-year home residency requirement. Once ma-comply mo na yung 2 years mo at makahanap ka ng H1B sponsor, then of course, you can come back on an H1B. Pero, tatapusin mo pa rin yung 2-year home residency requirement mo kasi subject ka to the 212B. Wala ako sa dami ng questions. Lumagpas. J2 AAD is more viable option than H4 AAD. So, boss, yung J2 AAD is a privilege, no? So, ibig sabihin, pag J2 visa holder ka, you could basically apply for a work permit. But if you are an H4, generally speaking, a work permit is not available for you. Except in instances where ang sinabi ko nga, kung ang H1 visa holder is already in the process of their green card route, no? But generally speaking, hindi eligible ang H4 mo for a work permit. Okay. Wilfredo, sir, how can I reschedule my visa interview because I have tried calling the US Embassy and no answer. So, I'm not so sure, Wilfredo, kung ano yung visa category mo, but it's a lot easier to manage visa embassy interview dates through your US travel accounts. So, if you cannot see any available dates on your type of visa, it means walang available dates na yun, no? But if you actually inside your US travel accounts, there is a button there on an option where you could actually have an emergency interview. Whatever the reason is, if you would want to use that, you may want to. But of course, there are criteria before you could use that option. But again, the general rule is the embassy establishes calendars depending doon sa visa category nila. And if you go there and you see a calendar open, then you can grab that. If you don't see any calendar being open, it means there's no available dates for that visa category. Sir, sorry po, US lang po yung opportunity namin. Lovely. Kahit wala pa pong employer sa US, pwede pa ba mag-apply ng H1B visa? No, an H1B visa is initiated by an employer. So, maghanap ka muna ng employer and we will talk about that in the next few slides on how you will be able to find an H1B employer. Lovely, kahit pa wala. Will Johnson, may specific month po ba nagpa-process ng H1B or any time of the year pwede, and how many months po ang regular processing? So, very good question. So, depende, boss, kung private employer ka, then generally they go through the lottery, and lottery is normally happens on between March and April. So doon binubunot yon. And again, even if nabunot ka doon sa period na yon, the start date ng mga nabunot is October 1. But what we are actually saying a while ago is kung ang employer mo cap exempt, and ito na yung next slide natin dito, right? Kung cap exempt sila, then they could actually hire any H1B potential employees anytime. And to answer your question, the premium processing where the employer pays $2,500 or $2,500 extra, then the government commits itself to make a decision within 15 business days. That's pretty much 3 weeks. And then you have your H1B visa approved. But pag normal processing ka, boss, nasa between 6 to 9 months yung normal processing ng H1B mo. Pasensya talaga, guys, ang daming questions kasi, so nahirapan akong mabili. Audrey, where else can I renew my J1 visa that expired aside from the Philippines? Okay po, J1, H1 po yung topic natin. But you could basically schedule. Normally kasi ma'am, yung US Embassy will only accommodate nationals or people who are in that particular country where they have resided or they are considered permanent resident or citizens. So if you're Pinoy, generally sa Manila lang yun. Kasi you cannot just appear in Hong Kong and if you have a tourist visa, they're not going to accommodate you. Just to answer, no. Can H4 then change to H1B? Yes, if they qualify for the job offer. Zel, if I wasn't able to finish my J1 program due to the pandemic, I am finishing up my 212E right now. Can I apply for H1B? So, ma'am, the H1B kasi is a very fast process, especially if the petitioner will file for premium processing. So, let us just say you are already in your first year of the 2 years na i-comply mo yung home residency requirement mo. Kung ang employer would want to avoid the premium processing, yes, the employer might be able to start the H1B process for you, pero regular processing ang gagamitin niya para makasave siya if the employer would want to do that. So, to answer your question, you can apply for an H1B only if the employer is willing to wait for you. And if they would want to strategize it para nga ma-avoid yung premium processing, yes, it's possible, ma'am. So, I guess what you can do is once you have a U.S. employer, just explain to them that, hey, I'm already on my, I've already completed the 1 year of the 2 years, and then they will be able to file the H1B normal processing instead of the premium processing. B. Reyes, good evening. At upon approval ng H1B, ilang months, year to wait to apply for the green card. So again, ito yung sinasabi natin kanina, ma'am, na if your employer decides to file the green card or to start the green card application for you after your H1B has been approved, they can do that anytime. So it's a matter of company policy or practice ng employer when they are actually going to start the green card process. Sams, may I ask po if the HB4 visa holder spouse is allowed to open his business while in this visa po? So, boss, anything kasi, boss, that the non-immigrant visa holder in the United States generates income, it might be construed as working. No? So, to avoid that finding, I would recommend na either maghintay na lang talaga, boss, na makakuha sila ng work permit or they would be able to change to a non-immigrant visa that would allow them to apply for work permit. Or ang recommendation ko, kung H1 na kayo, again, the employer might be able to start the green card application for the H1 principal applicant. So at least pag na-file na yung green card application, together with the green card application, they could also file the work permit. So I would not take the risk, boss, of while on an H4, I would enter or go into the business kasi baka ma-misconstrue ka as working without authorization. Hello, Mamila. Good evening. Zenny, how much is the cost of processing H1B visa? So I would recommend that you ask that from the employer because according to the rules, dapat ang employer ang magbabayad ng pagpapayag ng H1B. Emerson, nagtataka ako kasi ako ang principal pero hindi lumalabas ang aking HCN bagkus yung asawa ko ang nagbigyan ng HCN kaya siya lang pa ang nagpa-medical. Boss, H1B ba pinag-uusapan natin? Because there's no medical requirement for H1B. Can you just be very clear on your facts, boss? How long will it take? Premium processing, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Pag normal processing, 6 to 9 months. Tony, I have a J1 visa holder and my family is with me here in the US. This will be our last year and we need to go back to on June 20. However, my husband's employer is offering him a green card after we fulfill the 2 years residency in Pinas. We also got an attorney to process our paper, and we have paid for down payment and monthly payment for 3 months. However, we are not really sure with this attorney that our friend has recommended. My question is, can we, sorry, my question is, can we transfer? Ma'am, naputol yung question niyo po. And yes, I'm getting very, very late. I can't even talk with you. Ma'am, sorry po. Please schedule a conference call sometimes next week. I am desperately waiting on my case. Ma'am, can you, yes, can you send a message to iDream America? I'm sure they would be able to schedule an appointment with you. So, pasensya na sa mga nagsisend. Medyo matagal-tagal yung hintayan sa availability ko. But depending on your case, kung talagang urgent naman siya, we would be able to find ways. But I would recommend that you send a message to iDream America. Now, minsan kasi hindi ko na nababasa yung aking personal messenger. Algier, Nick, it will be possible for an applicant to apply for an H-1B even if he was refused to get. Okay, very good question ito, Algier, no? So, kaibahan kasi ng J1 over the H. The J1 is a non-immigrant visa whose visa, yung applicante mismo commits itself na temporary lang yung stay ko sa United States, and that I should be able to go back when my program is completed, whether it's initial 3 years or 5 years yon, if you would want to maximize. So, ang nangyayari, pag nag-apply ka sa embassy, and then the consul actually finds out that chances are you may not go back home because wala kang ties in your home country, then that's the main reason bakit nadi-deny yung J1 application mo. The officer or the consular officer still has the prerogative to look into your ties in your home country or last country of residence to determine whether your intention is to go back or magsistay ka na talaga sa US. If they actually have the impression that you are not coming back, they have all the right to deny your J1 visa application. So, in this case, what you could actually have done is talk to your employer and convince them to file an H-1B for you instead nung J1. Kasi yung H-1B nga, kagaya na sinasabi ko kanina, meron siyang dual intent. It doesn't matter if during your interview sa embassy, maramdaman ng officer na, hindi na ito babalik kasi mag-a-apply ito ng green card. Because the H-1 visa has dual intent. So, you could basically express your intention to apply for a green card even at your H-1B interview at the embassy. So, I would recommend to convince your office employer na mag-H-1B ka na lang instead of a J1. Zay, required po ba si JFNS as I-1 course sa California? I think you are asking for an EB3, ma'am, no? So, ma'am, yung CG and CLEX is a requirement regardless of the state. Yuli, can you help me? Can you help someone obtain an H-1B visa in Wisconsin? Meron kaming mga potential employers in Wisconsin. Ang tanong na lang, ma'am, if do you have a license to teach or to work in Wisconsin? If you have one, send us a message because we might be able to refer you to a school district if you happen to be a teacher. May nag-angry emoji na naman tayo dito. This is the continuation of my message po. My question is, can we transfer to a different attorney while, like lumipat po kami sa inyo kahit na po naka-open na ang case for us? We started in April and I was just saying that the prevailing wage application is still pending. Then, we also do not receive a receipt for our monthly payments. That's why parang di po ako secured. Okay, so ma'am, in fairness to the lawyer, ma'am, no, yung prevailing wage talaga ang tagal. So, normally, the prevailing wage determination could actually take normally between 3 to 4 months. But with the pandemic now, we are actually seeing way beyond that. No? So, nasa 7th, 8th month na wala pa rin approval doon sa prevailing wage. Now, after the prevailing wage, dapat mag-start na ngayon yung labor certification process. But ma'am, good thing na hindi mo na identify yung employer mo dito because the employer might be in trouble because bakit kayo ang nagbabayad sa labor certification process nyo? Dapat employer nagbabayad na. But to answer the question, ma'am, can you transfer to another lawyer? Yes, of course, but you have to talk to your employer if they would allow you to transfer to another attorney. Okay? Good luck on that. Pero ma'am, dapat hindi kayo nagbabayad ng labor certification. Jerry, what if I have a tourist visa, then I go to the US for vacation? Will it be possible to apply for an H-1B visa there if there is a job offering? So again, mama, if you are a tourist visa holder and you happen to visit the US, your main intention is para gamitin yung tourist visa mo. The moment na maramdaman ng officer that you are looking for jobs, baka ma-airport to airport ka ma. But if the question is it possible while I am on a tourist visa that I would be able to change status to another non-immigrant visa? Yes. So I started my I entered the United States on a tourist visa, and I was just lucky enough that I have been offered a job, but I obtained my visa in Hong Kong. Hindi ako nag-change status in the US. But to answer your question, for as long as you maintain status and you do not violate the terms of your tourist visa, then it's possible, ma'am. So, but as a tourist visa holder, you cannot change plan within the next 90 days of your arrival in the United States. Else, it could be construed as fraud. Clarice, what kind of visa po ba ang need namin applyan to stay for good and work in Florida? So, ma'am, you have two options, ma'am, no? So, I don't know kung anong klaseng profession mo. If you are a teacher or any, pag may bachelor's degree ka, H-1B might be a potential option for you provided mayroon kang employer. Pero pag wala kang employer, ma'am, and if you would want to apply for a green card, so then again, there are several ways of obtaining or applying for a permanent residence. The most common is through the family base. So pag may parents ka or may anak ka or may sibling ka, they might file an immigrant petition for you. But mas mabilis is yung employment base. So especially if you happen to be in the healthcare profession. So yun. To answer your question, ma'am, explore the H-1B or the immigrant visa. Now, if you would want to know specifically ano yung better options for you, I would recommend that you set up an appointment. Julius, if ever na-acquired mo yung H-1B visa from J1 in the US, pwede po bang umuwi para magpastamp sa passport sa embassy? Ano ba ang dapat gawin? Very good question, boss. No? Kasi kung halimbawa you enter into the United States on a J1, ngayon nakakuha ka ng H-1B, meron kang H-1B approval, there is still another application that you need to apply, and it is the employer that needs to fill out or to sign that application. Ito yung tinatawag, boss, na petition for an action of an approved petition. So that's form I-824. The purpose ng application na yon is to inform the U.S. Embassy abroad. So if in your case, it will be the U.S. Embassy in Manila that you already have an H-1B. And then, doon ka, once ma-approve na yon, and it could take 6 to 9 months yung application na yon, then you would be able to set up a schedule at the embassy for stamping. Pwede na rin sumabay yung mga dependents mo. Okay, so tanong mo pala yun. As well as H4 dependents na nasa Pinas pa, planning to get them. Okay, so boss, I would recommend, boss, that you consult a lawyer kasi hindi yun ganun lang kasimple na nadalhin mo lang yung visa stamp mo just like what you do with the J1. Meron ka pang extra application if you have an H1B to get an H1B stamp together with your dependents at the US Embassy abroad. Baka kasi pag umuwi ka without having that application, hindi ka na makabalik, no? Or your dependent. So, make sure, boss, na ano na lang, to be in the safer side, you consult a lawyer. Paano po malaman kung CAP-exempt yung employer? All public schools po ba CAP-exempt? And anytime po pwede i-apply yung H-1B pag CAP-exempt. So, since natanong mo na rin, no? The slide that I was actually sharing, yan, talks about yung particular question mo, Will, no? Employers exempt from CAP exempt. So, higher education institution, yun yung mga universities who are actually non-profit, yun, pwede silang mag-apply ng CAP exempt. Pwede rin yung non-profit organization associated with higher education. So, I'll give you an example. So, normally, yung mga elementary school teachers or yung mga middle school teachers or high school, they are generally not eligible to apply for CAP exemption. However, if they could actually prove that they are associated or affiliated with an institution of higher education, so halimbawa, public school ka, no? Elementary, high school, mid school, and you will be able to show that, oh, I have an affiliation agreement with a university or college na non-profit din, then chances are your school might be CAP exempt. So, maraming factors na tinitingnan dun, boss. Una, they should be proof that they are tax exempt. Most public schools are tax exempt. So, at least obtain mo na yung first requirement na yon. Ang second requirement talaga where some districts struggle is walang mga universities or colleges near them, and it will be very difficult for them to partner with those institutions. But to answer the question mo, for as long as yung school district mo would be able to establish that agreement with an institution of higher education, chances are they will be CAP exempt. Eileen, pag makapag-obtain po ba ng LM license, can you refer the license holder sa schools? We have some petitioners who are looking for teachers, and we will talk about that in the next slide. Ma'am Eileen. Sams, I have children that are U.S. citizens. When does my eldest can file a petition for me and my husband, and how long is the process and the chance of approval? So, ma'am, congrats on that. If ang anak mo is 21 years old na, then they could actually file a petition for you. The petition for parent is basically 1 year, ma'am, approved na yung petition mo. So, congrats in advance. Princess, assuming that J1 visa has waived, which one is the best option, H1B or green card? So, good question to, ma'am. No? So, halimbawa lang, you are in public school, no? And you already obtained a waiver on your J1. If your school has not started the labor certification process, which could basically take 2 years, kung hindi pa nila na-start yon, then the best option for you is to go through the H1B process, then mag-apply ng green card later. Pero kung halimbawa, meron nang nauna sa inyo, ma'am, at na-approve na yung kanilang labor certification, then pwede ka lang sumabay doon sa labor certification process na yon. But you just have to make sure na hindi ka may gap, baka may gap kasi, ma'am, no? So halimbawa, let's just assume that the school already have a labor certification approved. However, yung J1 visa mo is mag-expire din in a month. So even if they will file your green card application, the work permit will still be approved 5 months later. So baka may 4 months kang wala kang work kasi wala ka ng J1 visa. So I would recommend, ma'am, that you talk to your lawyer, whoever will be handling your J1, your green card application or your H1B application, what is best for you. But to answer your question, depende, ma'am, kung ang school mo meron ng approved labor certification. If wala pa silang approved labor certification or they have not started the labor certification process yet, the best option for them is to file H1B for you. Honey, visa sponsor and my employer were asked to sign the no change of status, meaning hindi po daw pwedeng mag-change from J1 to H1B. Is it possible to apply for H1B after the program? Yes. Kasi at that time, hindi ka nasakop doon sa program na yun, ma'am. But it is true though that if there is agreement between your school district and the J1 sponsor that the school district will not support any plan of change status, then they will not support your change of status then to H1B. So you might want to look for another sponsor na magpa-file ng H1B for you. After the program, you can do that kasi hindi ka nasakop ng program na yun. May violation po ba if mag-apply ng green card through family-based petition while you have the H1B? Hindi po. Kasi nga, may dual intent yung H1B. You don't have to finish the 3 years, but that is for the immigration purposes, ma'am, no? But tingnan mo lang kung kunwari may kontrata ka with your employer that, hey, you cannot leave us while you are on H1B, and if you leave, you will be paying us X number of dollars, then ibang usapan yon. That is under contracts and obligations. But for purposes of immigration, wala namang violation if you're gonna change from H1 to green card. Ma'am, depende kasi ma'am yung ano, no? Again ma'am, I'm sorry ma'am, H1B kasi yung topic ma'am. Sagutin ko na rin lang. Kung may NCLEX ka na siya ma'am, pwede na yon, but I would recommend ma'am to consult the Board of Nursing kung anong prefer nila, the NCLEX or the CG. If you would want clarification or guidance on that, you could contact iPass Processing ma'am. So you could search them through Facebook. They will be better able to manage you. Kasi regulation yun, ma'am, regulatory requirement for nurses. Jaynard, is there any possibility po ba na ma-deny sa US Embassy ang H1B visa holder po? Depende po, no? So, but generally, if the J1 visa has already been approved sa USCIS, ang chance na lang, ma'am, na ma-deny ka sa embassy will be if mayroong fraud, no? So, ibig sabihin, if you don't have the required bachelor's degree, or if you don't have the required number of years of experience, or if yung documentation mo hindi totoo. So yun na lang yung reason bakit ka mati-deny, no? Kasi wala namang medical requirement for H1B. So again, the chance might be slim, but if it will be denied, it could be applicant specific. Hindi na siya yung sa H1B process in general. Attorney, magkakaanak ako ng US citizen. After ba ng J1 ko, H1B lang pwede ko applyan o pwede diretso ng green card? So kagaya ng sinabi ko kanina, no, assuming na makakuha ka ng waiver, depende kung ang school mo is meron ng approved labor certification, because the labor certification could take 2 years. So unlike if you have a US citizen spouse, the US citizen spouse can file the green card application for you. But kung ang waiver mo is coming from the US citizen child, the child cannot file a green card for you. So in that case, H1B would be better route than transition ka to the green card. Again, depende boss kung may labor certification approved na yung school niya. Clarice, I have a pending EB3 with sons more than 21 years old. Will I better be apply H1B for them rather than F2A? Okay. I have a pending H1 EBB with sons more than 21 years old. Ma'am, did you talk to your lawyer, ma'am, kung magko-qualify kayo for CSPA? No? Kasi pwede yun. Kung H1B naman, kung mag-age out din naman sila, they will still not be covered by the EB3. But the good thing sana, kung nandito kayo sa US at current pa yung EB3 at nakapasok sila H4, then again, hindi na mahabol, ma'am, yung 21 eh. Hindi na maisama sa green card application. So, but if you already have a pending EB3, the best way, ma'am, is talk to your lawyer kung pwedeng mahabol o ma-apply ang CSPA sa mga anak mong 21 years old. Kasi kung malaki naman yung gap between the filing date and the approval date, may chance, ma'am, na makahabol pa yung anak mo. But I would recommend talking to your lawyer now because the lawyer might be able to expedite your EB3 application. If you're J1 o subject to 128, may chance po ba na makapag-change ka ng status to H1B? Malabo, boss, kung hindi ka pa nakapag-comply ng 2-year home residency requirement. So, Jello, I was denied before for a tourist visa and planning to apply again for tourist visa. I am married and I have a kid. Sir Jello, mayroon akong mga Facebook Live about tourist visa. If you have time, you could basically go over that. Wala po bang magiging conflict sa H1B interview or sa filing ng H1 kapag nalaman nila na nagpa-interview ka na for J1? No. Generally speaking, no. let's say nag-apply for a teaching position in July, then when can you receive your H1B in a regular processing time? 9 months po from filing. Joshua, is there possibility we can get US Social Security number even if you're hindi po? Wala pong ganon. You have to have at least a working visa or a green card to be able to obtain a US Social Security number. Marie, is it okay to file a spouse visa even if there is an ongoing petition for EB3? O naman, kung sino na lang mauna, yun na yun. Ang i-pursue mo. Record po ba magpaturo pagbalik sa class as J1 after? Hindi naman. And that's the funny thing, ma'am, no? Because the purpose of the J1 visa talaga for you to go home is to be able to impart yung knowledge mo and skills na natutunan mo while on the J1. The problem is, pagbalik mo, hindi naman guaranteed, ma'am, na ma-re-employ ka doon sa schools. But the only requirement is that you stay for 2 years in your home country, and then you can apply, you can go back to the US either on an H1, a J1, or an immigrant visa. But it's not required that magturo ka ulit. Ang question na lang doon, ma'am, is pag kunwari ba na-comply mo yung 2 years mo at wala kang work, will the new employer ba willing to hire you considering, ma'am, na hindi ka nakapagturo for 2 years o hindi ka currently teaching? Okay? Last question before we proceed with the other slides. No? Can a student visa get a permanent resident in the US? May ongoing application pa ako sa US using EB3. Kaso planong boyfriend ko mag-student visa sa US at doon na kami magpakasal. Okay lang po ba? Okay, so pag student visa ka or mag-a-apply, pag approve na yung student visa mo, then there is no problem if you have a pending green card application. But kung mag-a-apply ka pala ng student visa, malaman ng officer that you have a permanent residency application pending, then chances are, i-deny nila yung student visa mo. Bakit? If you're gonna apply for a student visa, you're actually telling the government that, hey, I don't plan to stay permanently in the US. I'm just coming here to complete school or finish my career. And then after that, you go back home. But pag malaman ng officer that you have a pending green card application, they will deny your student visa application. Okay, guys, thank you very much. Tuloy natin yung presentation natin on H1B cap. So, again, balik tayo dito to answer ano yung mga employers exempt from H1B. Kasi nga, pag hindi ka cap exempt, ang chance mo lang talaga na makakuha ng H1B sponsor is through lottery that happens between March and April of every year. And even if nabunot ka nun, your start date will be October 1 of the same year. Pero if your employer is cap exempt, so halimbawa mga school, public schools, and then they are affiliated with higher education of an institution of higher education, college or university, then chances are they could file cap exempt any time of the year, and as soon as the H1B is approved, they could start working for that employer any time of the year. Challenges. Ito na yung pag-usapan natin. No? So, ang challenges lang ngayon, H1B sponsoring employees are difficult to find kasi bihira talaga. So halimbawa, in the case of the teachers, ang daming J1 sponsors, right? Kasi ang dami ding kakulangan ng mga teachers in the US. But yung mga H1B sponsors kasi, mahirap hanapin because whether you like it or not, ang daming school districts in the US na hindi familiar doon sa H1B process. Ang alam lang talaga nila, and again, kudos to the J1 sponsors, very proactive yung mga agencies na yon in educating the school districts about the J1 program. But rarely do they open the H1B program kasi nga mabilis din i-process yung J1. In J1 sponsorship, mas gumagastos yung applicant, hindi yung schools. Kaya bihirang-bihira yung mga H1B sponsoring employers. Now, if you are referring to naman the private employers, right, yung mga nag-hire ng engineers, ng programmers, nadi-discourage sila because as much as they are willing to spend the cost of the H1B petition, hindi sila mabunot in March or April, nagsasayang lang sila ng pera, kaya nadi-discourage sila to file an H1B. So, yun lang yung challenges on getting employers. Second challenges mo, school district have limited knowledge or understanding about. Yun yung sinasabi ko, no, na mas familiar sila sa J1 process. Kaya they would rather hire teachers on J1 instead of H1B. So sa mga private employers naman, hindi masyadong common ang J1. So they would rather hire foreign nationals either on H1 or immigrant visa. So kami, kung akong tatanungin, kung ako private employer ako, I would rather file a labor certification and get that or hire that foreign national on immigrant visa as opposed to H1B. Number 3, new regulations require employers to pay for the H1B related expenses. No? So may mga kaibigan ka naririnig in the past na hey, kami naman nagbayad and so on. Bawal na yun ngayon. So the H1B application process or any H1B related expenses must be shouldered by the employer. H1B validity is limited by, so in the case of the teachers, halimbawa, kaya yung mga ibang school district na discourage din mag-sponsor ng H1B kasi kung hindi ka pa nakapunta sa US, then yung state mo, halimbawa South Dakota will not give you a 3-year license to teach if you have not been in the United States with a valid visa or kung wala kang social security number. So, ang ginagawa nila, while the employer could file an H1B, chances are, ang bibigay lang ng embassy is 1-year validity. Then the problem with that is, pagpasok mo, 11 months later, kailangan mo namang mag-renew ng H1B mo. So, masyadong magastos yon sa school district. So, doon sila nadi-discourage din minsan. So as much as possible, and we'll talk about that later, on how you would increase your chance of getting H1B sponsorship. Yun yung next slide. Another challenge natin dito is the issuing embassy location. So halimbawa, good for those who are applying for H1B in the Philippines because for as long as your license is at least 3 years, ang validity ng H1B mo will be issued at least 3 years. But let's say Pinoy ka and you will appear in Thailand or Indonesia or in Dubai. The only validity that they will give you, even if yung teaching license mo is 3 years, 1 year lang. So what we do encourage though is, even if nasa Dubai ka or Thailand ka, we would recommend na mag-apply ka ng interview on H1B in the Philippines para mabigyan ka ng 3 years validity on H1. One of the 5 challenges here, outside the US applicants, obtaining a permanent teaching license is challenging. So, tugma-tugma yung question kanina ni boss na, hey, will we be able to apply for Social Security while outside the United States? No. Unless you are, at one point, you are a derivative beneficiary of an immigrant visa or you're formerly a J1 visa holder, pwede kang nagkaroon ng Social Security. But again, other than that, mahirap makakuha or hindi ka talaga makakuha ng US Social Security number. So, ito na rin yung mga tanong ng mga teachers natin na interested to teach in the United States but ayaw nilang magturo sa New Mexico, no? Because as of now, New Mexico is one of the states na medyo mas madaling makakuha ng teaching license. The problem with most states though is they will require you to have a US Social Security number to be able to get a license. So, yun yung problema natin, no? But, kung kunwari, may makahanap ka ng school district who is willing to spend for you kasi talagang impress siya sa background mo at wala silang pakialam kung ang initial H1B mo is only for 1 year and then pagdating mo, they can actually apply for your renewed H1B, wala din namang problema yon. So, the challenge now is how do you now look for those H1B employers? And we'll talk about that in the next slides. No? So, again, before I go to the next section, balik na naman tayo dito sa mga questions. No? Kasi dumami na naman yung mga questions. Nasagot ko na si Ma'am Clarice kanina. If you're J1 ang 71 may chance po po na makapag-change. Hindi po, Sir Jello. Hello, Sir Ricky. Talk to you soon, boss. tawagan ka namin next week after we paggaling namin sa Washington, D.C. Marami na ako na-skip ng mga questions sa sobrang dami. Okay, Yuli, is it okay to apply for H-1B visa while you are in Thailand or do you really have to go back to the Philippines? So, kaka-discuss ko lang no, na you could basically apply for H-1B while you are in Thailand. As a matter of fact, if you are not in the Philippines, may advantage ka kasi hindi ka nadadaan sa POAA. The problem lang, ang i-issue sa'yo na H-1B validity, 1 year lang. Now, whereas, if you're gonna go back to the Philippines, if your license is at least 3 years, ang validity ng H-1B mo will be issued in 3 years. Then, dadaan ka muna sa POAA kasi kukunin mo yung Overseas Employment Certificate mo. Okay? So, proceed tayo dito sa improving your chance of obtaining H-1B sponsorship. So again, if you are a teacher, decide on what subject area you want to teach and where. So again, kailangan mo malaman kung English major ka, then chances are you would want to stick into that subject area. Pag SPED ka rin. And then, decide kung saan kang state mag-a-apply. And then understand the licensing requirement. So, yung mga nandito na sa US, and they either have obtained a waiver, or yung school nila ayaw mag-sponsor ng H-1B, then they are actually in a better position to choose kung saang state sila ngayon mag-a-apply ng new license. No? Good thing, they have social security number and then they are already in the United States in lawful status. So, ang bilis nilang mag-apply ng reciprocity. So again, depending sa particular state. No? But the challenge for people outside the United States, so, halimbawa, nasa Pilipinas ka, ayaw mo ng New Mexico, kasi gusto mo sa California or in New York or Michigan, then the question for you is, do you have the social security number? Kasi yun yung number 1 requirement. So if you don't have a social security number, then ang hirap kumuha ng license sa state na yun. And then even assuming that you have a social security number kasi galing ka na sa US, kasi formerly J1 visa holder ka, some state would still require a valid visa before you could apply a full-fledged unrestricted license. Example, South Dakota. No, hindi lang enough na meron kang social security number, you also have to have a visa to be able to get an unrestricted license. Okay? And then look for sponsorship. Ito lang yung example ng ano no. So South Dakota would require you to have a valid visa and a social security number for you to be able to get the license. Okay. So hello Pearl. Talk to you soon. Joan, if I have a pending family-based petition, can I apply for H-1B while? Yes po, you could apply H-1B habang meron kang immigrant visa. But can it be extended when you get to the US? Yes. Ang tanong na lang is kung willing ba yung employer mo to extend. Kasi nga, the rule requires them to pay for the filing fees. Referrals. So, boss, paano bang, pag kunwari, nasa outside ka the US, how would you improve your chance of getting H-1B sponsorship? Referrals, no? So, the good thing about the social media ngayon, marami ng mga support groups. So, halimbawa, Filipino teachers in the US. So, yung mga iba dyan, alam nila na yung school district nila is hiring and willing to sponsor H-1B, then pwede kayo magtanong sa kanila kung pwede ba silang, pwede ba ma-refer yung or ma-forward yung documentation mo to HR nila para ma-consider ka, no? Ito din, join social media support groups, halimbawa, Filipino teachers in the US, so you would be able to get more inputs, get mga tips kung sinong mga school districts and currently hiring, and then marami ding mga members doon na mga sponsors, no? Either a J1 sponsor or mga manpower agencies who might be posting their job opportunities, offering H-1B or J1 doon sa groups na yun. Pwede ka rin mag-search job sites but bihirang-bihira. But again, this is answering the improving your chance of obtaining H-1B sponsorship. Then you can actually go into those type of options to get. Taga Summer, hello po. Gay Abby, are there states doesn't require teaching license. Kailangan po lahat may teaching license, and you have to go through the reciprocity process nila. Now, the good thing about the Filipino teachers though is for as long as pumasa ka sa PRC at meron kang license ng PRC issued at valid pa yon, they are actually considering you, reciprocity ang tawag. So, basically, they would acknowledge your license in the Philippines. They will acknowledge your teaching experience anywhere, whether in the Philippines yon or abroad, for purposes of licensing. And then, even most employers would actually acknowledge or recognize your teaching experience in the Philippines and your license. So, kailangan mo talagang mag-go through sa licensing reciprocity process ng state kung saan mo gustong mag-apply. Okay, sagutin lang muna natin dito yung mga nagtatanong. Join Filipino Teachers in the US Direct Hiring Pathway. Yon, mga example na yon ng mga groups in social media. At pag J1 ang subject to 212E, may chance po ba na makapag-change ka ng status H1B? You either have, ito na yung slide ko, boss, no? Next slide natin. Discuss natin yan. I am interested to teach in the US as a math teacher. I have sent my resume via iDream America. I have been teaching for almost, ma'am, kailangan mo muna, or sir, kailangan mo muna kumuha ng license before you would be able to increase your chance of getting H1B sponsorship. Ano po bang teaching requirements for New Mexico? Sir, you can send a message to iDream America for guidance on getting a license. How many years of teaching experience does an H1B require? Depende sa state, but in New Mexico, you only have to have at least one relevant teaching year of experience, and then depende sa subject matter mo, and you might be able to get your license. But that's the licensing part. The more years of experience you have, tataas din yung chance mo of getting employment sponsorship. Kasi license is just a requirement, right? But yung employability mo, depending on your years of experience. Sir Ed, do international schools in the US sponsor H1B? Meron, boss, no? But pag international school, private yon. So mas like chances are, hindi sila cap exempt. So, if they are willing to hire H1B visa, chances are they will go through the lottery. Julius Silote, can an H1 visa holder transfer to another employer? H1B can transfer to another employer provided that that new employer will file an H1B for them. Can they work on a part-time job? Yes. Hindi required na full-time job ang H1B visa holder. For as long as meron silang approved H1B visa. How to get license in New Mexico? Sir, you can send a message to Nicolas Caracal Facebook account or iDream America. They might be able. They will be able to guide you on how to obtain a license. Dane, kapag may 1.5, okay, sorry. Kapag may 1.5 year ka na stay sa Pilipinas as J1, pwede na po ba makapag-apply ng H1B? Yes, boss. Now, ang recommendation ko, if meron ka ng ganun, you could now start contacting yung mga previous employers mo, or kung may mga bago kang employer identified, you could now start telling them that, hey, I am now just 6 months away from completing my 1 year. Would you like to start the H1B process for me? That's possible, and I would recommend that you do that. EMS, most of the schools in the US don't want to sponsor a visa because it will take too long to process daw po. How to know if they are sponsoring H1B? So if you actually just, I don't know if you just joined EMS, I actually just discussed yung ways of getting sponsorship for H1B. Okay? Jean Bain, mayroon pa bang direct hiring? So far, the clients that we have are direct hires. So we work closely with school districts, and if they would be interested in hiring you, so they do direct hire. The good thing about the direct hire though is, again, they will be paying for your H1B fees, and then at least yung sweldo mo buo, no? Kasi pag dumadaan ka sa mga manpower agencies, siyempre may kaltas sila doon. So it is very good kung makakuha ka ng direct hire employer. Neil, asking for a friend po, his husband is currently a J2, not subject to 1-2E rule. Po sa ilalim ng Post sila from Dubai, then planning to adjust status and apply as a nurse in Florida. Will it affect the status of the J1 teacher? Boss, kung yung J2 mo, not subject to, then they might be able to apply for the green card, provided nga that they will be able to maintain status. So again, it's not a yes or no yung question mo, boss. So you have to take into consideration gaano ba katagal yung labor certification process, kung meron na ba silang approved labor certification. Marami pang details na kailangan nating malaman before we could answer straight yes or no. But to answer the question, kung hindi subject to 212E ang J2, then they might want to take the risk na mag-apply na agad ng H1B or immigrant visa. Pag ang J1 is subject to, malamang boss yung J2 is subject to, then to have the peace of mind, mag-advisory opinion na lang kaya sila. Kasi it might be possible na pati yung J1 not subject to, no? But again, there are information you need to know to gauge the chance na baka hindi naman talaga to subject to. So in your DS 2019, titingnan nyo, boss, kung ang funding ba is walang government funding. So if kung nababasa mo doon is personal funds or coming from the school district, so malamang not subject to yon. But to answer your question, if ang J2 ba na not subject to, nag-apply ng adjustment of status, meaning green card, at nag-apply as a nurse, then yung J1 na subject to, boss, hindi makapag-apply ng green card yon. No? Kasi nga, kailangan niya makakuha ng waiver or mag-comply ng 2-year home residence requirement to be able to maging beneficiary dun sa adjustment of status ng J2. Hello, Sir Brian. Is there a difference po ba sa benefits like salary between J1 and H1B visa holder? Boss, depende na yun sa boss. Depende sa job offering ng employer. Kasi you need to understand na J1 is not a work visa. Hindi siya non-immigrant working visa. So, a J1 visa holder is an exchange visitor. So, in a way, trainee lang siya. No? So, malamang mas mababa ang sweldo niya sa H1B. Kasi H1B, you have to comply with the prevailing wage, which is dictated by the Department of Labor in the US. No? And then, the schools will also might offer the standard friends benefits nila sa kanilang schools as part of their employment. So, again, the J1 visa is not an employment visa. So, to answer your question, I didn't really am familiar with mga benefits ng J1 visa holder because we don't assist J1 in obtaining the J1 visa. But to answer your question, since a J1 visa is only a training visa or an exchange visitor visa, malamang mas mataas yung benefits o category ng H1B. Ma'am Boreales, if you are hired single for H1B then get married later in the Philippines, can you apply for H4 for your spouse? Yes, po. Algier, is there standard salary for H1B applicant? Yes, po. The salary of H1 is dictated by the Department of Labor through the prevailing wage. Dolor, any state po accepting a non-education degree but passing a valid PhD? Okay, so very good question, boss, no? So, if hindi ka originally teach BS Ed or education background, but nag-second degree ka, you were able to pass the teacher license in the Philippines, then technically, you are a teacher. It doesn't matter kung anong background mo. So, even if you will go through the foreign degree evaluation, yun yung purpose nun for them to say that combining yung non-education degree mo or courses mo compared to yung additional units mo, the foreign degree evaluation might say that the combination of your courses is equivalent to an education degree in the US. Yun yung magmamatter doon. No? Ngayon, if you have 6-year teaching license experience, mas mataas ngayon yung chance mo na i-employ ka. So, you just have to differentiate between the question about the licensing requirement. For licensing, you only need at least to have 1 year relevant experience, but is that enough to convince an employer to employ you? Malamang hindi. So, the more years of experience you have, tataas na ngayon yung chance mo of being employed. So, yun yung difference ng licensing requirement versus employability mo. Yuli, if your J1 got denied, would that affect the approval of H1B? Hindi po. Normally, in cases where nadi-deny yung J1, dahil nga the officer finds that you have the intention of staying in the United States, na mababa yung ties mo in your home country or your last country of last residence. Kaya dinideny yung J1 visa mo. So again, kagaya ng tanong kanina, I would recommend convincing your employer to file an H1 for you instead of the J1. Nerissa, what are the states you know that offers H1B for SLP? Ma'am, ang daming requirement ng SLP. So, I think most states that ina-assist namin ng mga school districts may opening ng SLP. Okay, Ma'am Nerissa, meron akong ito yung last slide ko. Stick to that, ma'am, para mag-apply ka na ng license sa state kung saan mo gusto, right? Sagutin ko lang to, si May, I'm married in the Philippines to an American now in the US, and I would like to visit him. What documents do I need? Ma'am, I would recommend that you file the spouse visa as opposed to looking for any type of visa. I think you're contemplating to filing a tourist visa. Malamang ma'am, madidinay ka nun. I would recommend na mag-file ka na lang ng spouse visa, ma'am, para sigurado. Wala po bang age limit in teaching in the US? Wala po. Jane, wala po bang age limit in it? With due respect po, is it true that if you are an H1B visa teacher, yung employer school will process your papers and handle all the cost of expenses? Yes po, dapat ang nagbabayad yung employer for H1B related expenses. Can I wait in another country for the home residency, J1, then apply for H1B? So again, the rules for the J1 requires you to spend your 2-year home residency requirement in your home country or last country of last residence, kung saan mo nakuha yung J1 mo. So halimbawa, nakuha mo yung J1 mo in Thailand kasi doon ka nagtuturo. Then, once matapos yung J1 program mo, you can go back to Thailand and complete the 2-year home residency requirement. But if you've been residing in the Philippines when you obtain the J1, then you have to go back to your home country of residence. Ay, yung home country mo to comply with the 2-year home residence. Angel, kung natapos mo ang program as J1 at hindi ka nakapag-waive at nakauwi ka na sa Pilipinas, pwede ba i-waive ang 2 years residency mismo sa Pinas? At kung may offer naman. So, kung hindi mo na siya na-waive, boss, then the only option available for you is to complete the 2-year home residency mo in the Philippines. Then again, kagaya ng tanong kanina, if nasa 1 year and a half ka na, then start contacting your J1, mga potential employers mo to potentially start the H1. And I'm sorry guys, doon sa mga nag-J1 I really would encourage you na kung umuwi na kayo ng Philippines, you know already how it feels like and to live on a J1 at hirap makakuha ng waiver. And since you already have contacts in the US, convince them to file an H1B for you instead na babalik ka on a J1. Kasi hirap talaga yan. Babalik ka na naman 5 years later, babalik ka na naman sa problema mo of obtaining a waiver. Si Greta, ma'am, discussan natin when I discuss the slide in front of me. Mamaya. But sagutin ko lang itong mga questions na to from Visa. Is J1 required in order to apply for the H1B visa? Like it's parang prerequisite po ba? Hindi need po ba teaching experience po ba in the years before you can apply H1? Very good question, Feza, no? Hindi naman requirement na mag J1 ka muna before ka mag-apply ng H1B. As a matter of fact, may mga school districts na nag-hire ng H1B from the Philippines kasi nga hirap na sila makakuha ng teachers dito. Halimbawa, may mga school districts kaming tinutulungan na despite the costly processing ng H1B at alam nila na 1 year lang yung ibibigay initially for the teachers, they are okay with that kasi kulang talaga sila ng teachers. And these teachers are lucky to be offered by that school district. So I'm referring to some school districts in South Dakota. Pero may mga teachers din naman sa New Mexico na the school district is willing to work with the applicant na makakuha ng at least 3 years requirement because they would be able to process their licensing even if they are outside the United States. So again, ito yung sinasabi ko kanina na you have to make a decision kung saang state ka mag-aral ay magturo para doon nakafocus ang effort mo to get a license. So, but to answer your question, Pisa, hindi kailangang J1 ka muna. As a matter of fact, I really recommend or encourage everyone outside the US na kung mayroon kang opportunity to get an H1, you would prefer an H1 over a J1 opportunity. At least, pag H1B ka pumasok ng US, tuloy-tuloy ka na nun. No? After H1, mag-green card ka na nun. Kasi pag mag-J1 ka, and you are subject to the 212E, yung uuwi ng 2 years, then you need a waiver or at least you need to comply with 2 years before ka ulit mag-apply ng JH or another immigrant visa. Okay, so discuss na natin tong next slide ko. And I want to spend a little bit time here. So, ito yung mga question kanina, no? If you have a valid teaching license with at least 3 years in New Mexico, Arizona, Michigan, Colorado, Washington, Missouri, South Dakota, and Maryland, and you are not subject to 212E. So, ibig sabihin, if you are currently in the US, no, at naka-obtain ka ng waiver, pero yung school district mo ayaw mag-sponsor ng H1B or green card application for you, you could actually send your resume together with your license to our website na nakasulat sa baba because we might be able to find an employer for you. Those who have obtained a waiver, no? So again, whether you are in the US or outside the US, if you have obtained, if you fall into any of the 3 conditions below, you are not subject to the 212E, or you have obtained a waiver, or you already have complied with the 2-year home residency requirement. Ang kagandahan kasi ng mga former J1 visa holder or yung mga H1 na nasa Philippines, you could basically apply for any state for a license kasi nga meron kayong social security number. No? May mga school districts naman na willing to work with you even if initially bibigyan lang kayo ng 1 year, but the moment na makapasok kayo sa US, they are willing to renew your H1 to another 2 years kasi nga, meron ka ng Social Security. So, for those outside the US na talagang wala pang experience sa US na magturo or walang Social Security number, then I would recommend that you choose the state na willing to give you a license no matter how limited the duration is for as long as makakuha ka ng license kasi may mga school districts who are willing to work with you. So, they may not be available publicly, right? But then again, we are not a manpower agency. We do not offer jobs for you. But as a law firm, we might be able to help find an employer for you for as long as you have the license or at least you're eligible to get a license. So again, we are not offering jobs for you, but at least you will be part of the pool na kung kunwari, may mga school districts na nagpapatulong sa amin na, Nick, can you help us get teachers for South Dakota or New Mexico or Las Vegas, you will be able to provide your contacts to them. Okay. So again, do not take this as if I am offering jobs for you because I don't. I only process legal documents or process the H1B visa. We don't process J1. H1 lang ang pinaprocess namin for green card for teachers or even for other non-professionals. But if you're a teacher and if you have a license or if you fall into any of these 3 conditions here, you might want to send your resume and copy of your license to us. Okay? So yun. If you have further questions, sagutin na lang natin dito. But that pretty much ends my presentation. So before I close my live today, I will just answer some of the remaining questions here. From Greta, yung SSN ba is for life na pag bumalik? Yes po. You can only have 1 social security number for life na yun. Rex, I am currently serving my second J1 visa in the US and previously served the 2-year. Do I really have to complete another 2-year? Yes, boss, if you are subject to 212E. Accept H1B application from Pakistan? Sir, as long as the employer will accept your application and they will offer you an H-1B, we do process the legal papers for you. So again, we don't process the H-1B itself because again, hindi kami manpower. We are not manpower agency, but we might be able to forward endorse your application to them if you have the license. Riley, paano po pag may pending na waiver application at di na umabot sa 1 month grace period since 7th year na as J1? What will happen po? I would recommend that you would explore changing status, ma'am. So, halimbawa, J1 ka, no? And then you're just waiting for your waiver to be approved, but you cannot afford to be out of status as well. You might want to consider changing from J to a tourist visa. Of course, you cannot work while waiting for the approval of your waiver. And good luck on that. May, I'm a teacher and pursuing my PhD. I'm afraid that they may think I will stay in the US and using my visit to my husband as a stepping stone. But all I want is to visit my husband. Okay, ma'am, mabilis lang naman yun, ma'am. Now, pagpasok mo sa port of entry mo, just look into straight to the eye of the officer, and if pag tinanong ka anong purpose mo, just to visit my husband, right? Of course, huwag mong dalhin mga credentials mo kasi pag nakita nila yon, then you are just showing your intent na maghanap ka ng work. So, good luck on that. Jang is, in behalf of my friend, her bachelor's degree po is Filipino major, but she's teaching English in the Philippines. She's already have master's degree in educational leadership and she's planning to get another units po in English. Is it possible to her apply for an H-1B? So, boss, this is a little bit tricky question, no? Kasi kung Filipino major ka, unless the school district is offering Filipino as a subject, kasi nga it happened to be na marami silang students na Filipino and they are going to offer that as a language, possibly, but I would recommend na kung may plano naman pala siya na mag-take ng English units, then mas mataas yung chance niya of getting a license first. Now, and then, ang ano nga doon, boss, is magkaiba ang question ng licensing sa employability. So, again, for me, since you are applying for a teacher in the US, I would encourage your friend to gain more experience teaching English and then get more English units para pag foreign degree evaluation ka, mas mabilis ang transition, boss, no? Kasi pag Filipino, medyo mahirap. Miss Eileen, how long does it take to obtain a New Mexico license? It depends, ma'am. Ang pinakamahirap kasi na step to get a New Mexico license if you are outside the United States is the fingerprinting. It could actually take up to 4 months to get a fingerprint, and then isa-submit pa yun sa NMPED, no? So, sa Public Education Department. And then, doon tatagal kasi nga magba-background check pa sila. Okay? But it could take 4 to 6 months. May mga iba, lucky naman, in a matter of weeks, natapos yung biometrics or yung fingerprinting na i-forward agad sa NMPED, and then nabigyan sila ng license. Additional question po, may specific po ba na states in the US na nag-o-offer ng H-1B visa po? So, boss, marami namang nag-o-offer ng H-1B. Kagaya na sinabi ko kanina, they are not publicly available. So, it really takes, again, pagkatapos ng Facebook Live na to, if you could go back to some of the slides where I actually discuss kung anong ways mo to know kung sino yung mga employers na yan. Maylene, after you're done with the 2 years requirement, ano po bang best move to apply H-1B? Ma'am, pag tapos ka na dun sa 2 years, ma'am, magkuha ka na naman ng license on the state kung saan mo gustong mag-tour. Then, after you obtain that, then go back to the slides where you could actually find H-1B employers. But then again, if you have a license in the areas or states na na-mention ko before, send your resume and license to our website, to our email. We might be able to help you out. So again, maraming salamat po. That ends my live today, and thank you for joining me. Okay, maraming salamat. We've finished 1 hour and a half. So till next Facebook Live ko, salamat sa suporta. Visit our website, idreamamerica.com, to learn more options for U.S. immigration that's available or would be an available option for you. Good night po. Bye-bye.